Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast, and welcome to our spoiler-free review for Marvel Television's Wonder Man. Simon Williams, reading for Wonder Man. Welcome to the Geekcentric podcast. My name is Nate, and this is our spoiler-free review for Marvel Television's Wonder Man. A special Hollywood-sized thanks, as always, to our friends at Disney Plus Canada and Marvel Canada for letting us watch this show early for review. If you're joining us for the first time, we are Geekcentric, a podcast celebrating the world of movies, TV shows, video games, and all things Geekcentric. Now, like any good audition, I'm going to need some scene partners to help me with this one. First up on the call sheet, he's delightful. He's daring. He's downright debonair. He's Darcy, the destined heroic Hollywood hopeful Hudson.
Yeah, I mean, I hope I'm a good partner. I might miss my cues. I'm sorry in advance.
Just like you did just now.
Yeah.
You came in a little late. Do we need to retake that before we send it in, maybe?
I don't think it's going to get any better. Again, I'm hopeful. I'm not sure if I ever have a shot, though.
Always hopeful, always heroic. But listen, next on set, he's not, he can be a bit of a diva sometimes, but it's all good because he always gives a jaw-dropping performance. He's Justin, the jazzy living legacy, law-abiding, line-reading Lawrence.
I am not a diva, just for clarity purposes, okay? just to clarify, I'm not a diva.
That's what a diva would say. Just
exactly. Yeah,
Exactly.
A diva would fully not say that. It would say that they're not a diva. So yes, I am definitely not a diva.
Oh, okay. How's it going, guys? Welcome to our first, I guess, MCU review of 2026. How does it feel to be back in the MCU?
It feels different. This is not the MCU we've seen before, and I'm all for it. I'm excited to talk about it.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is very, very different from what we're used to, especially from the Marvel Television side of things. So yeah, it's an interesting show.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to talk about it. I'm excited to get into some of the details here. Of course, we were lucky enough to get to watch the series in its entirety, all 8 episodes. But let me get to, for those listening, the synopsis for this series. Aspiring Hollywood actor Simon Williams is struggling to get his career off the ground. During a chance meeting with Trevor Slattery, an actor whose biggest roles may be well behind him, Simon learns legendary director Von Kovac is remaking the superhero film Wonder Man. These two actors at opposite ends of their careers doggedly pursue life-changing roles in this film as audiences get a peek behind the curtain of the entertainment industry. The series stars Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, Ben Kingsley, Ariane Moayed, Mayo, and Zlatko Burek. Wonder Man launches with all episodes streaming on Disney Plus Tuesday, January 27th. So, Darcy, you kick things off here by saying that this series is very different for the MCU. We're starting off the year with a very different take on some of the traditional comic book lore. And I think, one of the biggest things that is instantly noticeable is how this series looks, how it feels, the vibe that they're going for. This, again, like Echo, is a Marvel Spotlight series. And the show, certainly the way it looks, lives up to differentiating itself from other Disney Plus Marvel stuff out there. A very classic, timeless Hollywood approach to some of the color grading, the way it's shot. Darcy, why don't you kick things off for us? What did you think about the way Wonder Man looks and feels?
I mean, it just doubles down on what it's going for, I think. The show it set out to do something, and it's tell a story about making a movies that happens to involve a superhero. And it is just so delightful in the way that it is just a love letter to movies. Basically, it reminded me a lot of Studio in the way that was shot, where it is just like behind the scenes peek, like we said, into what makes movies and why we love them, and all the highs and lows that actors and producers can go through. So this is just, it's fantastic how it just feels, like you said, like a classic Hollywood. They're paying attention to how they're shooting things, like things have meaning in the shots. It's just, it looks and feels incredible. I love what they've set out to do, and I think they nailed it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one thing that immediately stood out to me about Wonder Man is just how grounded it feels. Like, this isn't a show, constantly trying to up itself with spectacle. It's, the lighting feels natural, the locations feel lived in, and there's just a noticeable reliance on practical environments rather than just heavy visuals. And there are a few familiar MCU style moments sprinkled throughout, but for the most part, this series feels almost docu-inspired in how it approaches Hollywood.
Mm.
Like, the camera often feels observational, letting scenes play out naturally instead of pushing them with flashy visuals or big set pieces. That grounded aesthetic really works for this story. Hollywood isn't presented as glamorous or aspirational. It's awkward. It's competitive. It's to be completely frank, it's exhausting. And visually, I think the show just leans into the reality of that, which makes the whole experience feel more intimate and character driven, truthfully. And I think that's not what we typically get from the MCU. So this is why the show feels so different from that perspective, is just how it looks and how it feels and how it operates in comparison to what else we've gotten from the MCU.
Yeah, and I have to shout out, I think it goes to the very old school, classy way this show is shot. But there's a few instances throughout these episodes where we get to see these characters driving, and something about how they film them, outside of the front, like of the windshield, right? In what sometimes feels like a one shot when they're taking off and driving, whether they're having a really good time or a terrible time. No matter what, it always feels, like you said, Justin, it feels personal, it feels intimate, it feels like we are along for the ride. Even the title treatment feels very like A24, like indie film almost inspired, where it just has the title just like in that font, spread across the screen. But no, dude, I absolutely agree, and I think that's, again, it's the most immediate noticeable thing about this series, is just how different it all looks. But I also want to shout out the music. I think Joel P. West did a great job giving the show its own feeling, and even like something that I feel like we've not fully had recently, which is it does have a character theme for Simon, which I really, really enjoyed in the way that it's used throughout the series, in slightly different ways, but then also to kind of give you that rousing feeling of success, but used in a way that doesn't necessarily feel like it is, how it would traditionally be used in a superhero show, right? It's used in very specific times for successes that aren't just about saving people or saving lives or coming in at that heroic moment. And so, yeah, I think it's the kind of score that really it knows when to just let the actors act. You know what I mean? And I think that's one of the things that stood out about the score for sure.
Yeah, I also think it has a bit of that, as you were mentioning, Darcy, that studio effect to it, where it kind of plays with sort of genre themes, and it has some big band jazzy kind of vibes to a certain degree, to kind of amp up the tension and give a little more I guess rush around this whole idea of Hollywood, the go nature, if you will. So I liked that the music kind of played with parody in relation to some of the moments and beats within this series.
Yeah, and I kind of hope that we, again, like, this is the Marvel spotlight effect kind of coming into full force here. And I hope that we get to see more departures from sort of what feels like the look of a Marvel show. You know what I mean? Like, we've kind of gotten an established base, and the way that this kind of stretches and pushes to be something different. But, Justin, you had mentioned that the Hollywood system, the for actors and anyone in the industry, that it can be exhausting. and we get to see some of these characters go through some very exhausting situations. Let's talk about these performances. And of course, let's start with Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, Simon Williams, Wonder Man. Justin, what did you think of Yahya Abdul-Mateen II as Simon Williams?
I think, Yahya as Simon is Williams is absolutely strong. It's a very restrained lead in some ways, right? Like his persona on set seems more elevated than he is as a person as Simon Williams. But what I love is that Yahya really sells that push and pull between being ambitious and being like feeling insecure.
Mm-hmm.
I think you feel how badly Simon wants to be taken seriously, and how much pressure weighs on him. And it's not flashy or over the top. It's grounded. It's internal at times. And in every line, the tone of this series just feels so rooted in being a character driven show rather than some epic MCU style show. Do you know what I mean? Like where, to like a degree, like, She-Hulk was character driven, but then there was this like ominous thing that ran through the episodes that made us feel like the universe was getting bigger, and then Daredevil shows up. But, something like this show feels so much like it's just honed in on that one character and what drives Simon Williams, and Yahya just plays it flawlessly. Like he delivers on all fronts. I'm so glad that he's in the MCU now.
Yeah, he's charming when he has to be, right? He's
Mhm.
annoyingly passionate at times as well, which in some ways it's like you can see like you're like there's moments in the show where I'm watching and I'm like, dude, no, shut up, stop talking. Like don't just stop and just chill.
He overthinks,
He overthinks, right?
yeah.
And so I think he did such a good job, like you said, he's kind of like in that balancing area, but then we also get to see his range. He's so intense in some moments
Mhm.
in this show, and I loved him as a character. I really hope we do get to see him again in the MCU. Darcy, what did you think of Yahya Abdul-Mateen II's performance?
Yeah, I think it's incredible because this is it's weird to take this character and start as an actor in the MCU, whereas the comics it was a much later in his, comic life, if you will, that he became the actor. But the way they managed to take the struggles an actor goes through and tie it to the comic book character, because they are vastly different backstories and origin stories, if you will.
Mhm.
But at their core, they are still suffering from the same issues of like, am I worthy? Who am I? What do I do? What am I trying to do in this world? Type thing. And just Yahya Abdul does Mateen II does such a good job of nailing it, like making this creative person feel like he's again that ambitious side of him, also struggling to go through those lows and stuff like that when he gets rejected. It's just you see like raw emotion coming through on almost every scene just because he's trying his best to be an actor, and it just I guess it hits so close to home because he does a fantastic job. But I think a lot of it boils down to is the fact that he's sharing the screen a lot of the time with Ben Kingsley's Trevor Slattery, because they are a match made in heaven. I love the two together, and I can't wait to see if we see them again, if they end up together again, type thing. I don't know. They're just it's too good to let go, man. They're so good together.
Hey, he's such a good pairing to your point, Darcy, as with Simon, because I think like Simon is holding things back, right? You instantly get the idea from Yaya's performance that he's like there's something underneath the surface there, and then Trevor is just like he is just so open about being himself, especially after going through the experience of playing the Mandarin for so long. He doesn't want anything to do with being that character, right? He wants to be known for his other successes, but he also just wants to be known for being himself. And I love that sort of back and forth that the two of them have they're teaching each other things throughout this series, and I absolutely love Ben Kingsley in this show.
Yeah, Sir Ben Kingsley's return as Trevor Slattery, it makes a surprising amount of sense in this Hollywood backdrop. Uh, the thing about Trevor, it feels like the perfect balance of humor and heart.
Mhm.
And he often becomes the unexpected voice of reason for Simon, like
Mhm.
the guidance, and given, as you mentioned, like Trevor's been through a journey in the MCU, a very unique one, being positioned as a terrorist in Iron Man 3, only to be like revealed as a massive con artist pretending to be the Mandarin. And his appearance in Shang-Chi, while that appearance was understandable given the fact of the Mandarin and all that, it also felt incredibly distracting to the story. I thought it was like unnecessary to have him. I appreciated him, don't get me wrong. I love Sir Ben Kingsley and I love his commitment to this character. But here, Trevor feels like the perfect fit. This is a character whose entire life has revolved around performance and illusion, and placing him in this story adds, like, I think, a real texture, and it adds that heart that we need. With that humor, it helps to bring it all together. I think there's such warmth, there's sincerity in anything and everything that Ben Kingsley does, Sir Ben Kingsley does, and you can see it in here. And I think that helps ground the show emotionally, making Trevor like kind of feel fully like he's in the right spot in the MCU to a certain degree. So yeah, I absolutely loved him. I thought he was perfect in this show to work off of Simon Williams' character.
And I think he's I love how much like he loves Simon in the show. You know what
He
I mean?
cares
Like
about him.
he cares about him,
him,
but then
yeah.
but I like that the show does a good job of sort of being like, well, is he just acting because he's such a good actor? Is he
Right.
not acting? And there is that back and forth. But then I just like the idea that Trevor loves Simon for his superpowers, not his superpowers, but his superpowers as an actor. And I think that's just such a lovely sort of through point for him. And like you said, Justin, this is the most realized version of Trevor Slattery that we've gotten.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing between them as a dynamic professionally is how much they appreciate the craft and the
Mhm.
craft of acting, and what goes into that effort. Like you pointed out with Simon, he's so annoyingly passionate about getting everything right down to the T, where he himself is his own worst enemy. And Trevor wants to help curb that in a way and help him understand the craft differently, so he's sharing his insights. It's really cool. It's really, really cool to see, because you have to wonder too how much of that is actually rooted in Yahya and Sir Ben Kingsley to actually, like, that's their approach. You know what I mean? To being actors. Not to say that I'm sure Yahya is passionately annoying, but I think he's passionate. I can see a sense of like wanting to get that character right. Maybe this is an opportunity for him to over exaggerate that trait and show an overskilled version of what he might be.
Someone who takes it too far. Yeah.
Exactly, because it's a characterization. Like I feel like
Mhm.
there has to be a sense of connectivity between these characters and our actors that feel tangible, that they can actually elevate, and connect with.
But it's also hilarious. You mentioned professional. Like Trevor Slattery absolutely is a professional,
I
but
think he was
hearing
a
him say
terrorist.
things like, but hearing him say things like, your process can blow a spider, or the amount of times he says bunghole in his Shakespearean accent
Yeah.
is so good.
Yeah.
And it's those comedic lines that kind of really help endear you to that character. Another character technically returning from the MCU is Orion Moyed's Agent P. Cleary.
Mhm.
And I enjoyed Arian in this series. I think he was excellent in Succession, and here in Wonder Man, his character is laser focused. I think it was really smart of them to include him in the show, because especially given that he is the guy, he kind of feels like he's now turning into the guy that deals with street level heroes. Like he's dealing with Spider-Man, he's dealing with Miss Marvel, he's dealing with now Wonder Man. And he's not in the show a ton, but I think he's kind of an integral part of this show, because like you said, Justin and Darcy, this show is focusing in on a sliver of the MCU that is humanity, right? Just
Mhm.
because these big, giant, super-powered, beings exist and these world-ending things have happened, that doesn't mean Hollywood stops. That doesn't
Yeah.
mean the government stops. And so it's always refreshing and nice to get a reminder that, hey, there's still human beings out here that that are worried about what's going on.
Yeah, it's also it's like the Andor effect, right? It's a perspective of actually highlighting the world and not the galaxy, right? Like highlighting the people and the human aspects, the things that make people and the people that live in this world. It feels very derivative of the shorts that they used to do. I don't know, the one shots. Did you guys ever watch any
Yeah,
of those?
Yeah.
with like the people
Yeah.
that find the weapon.
Yeah, like
in New York or
it felt
whatever.
very inspired by that, in the sense that like now we're seeing real people, but obviously there's something here. You mentioned Orion Moyd, and I think, yeah, you're right. He's the sort of tissue or the thread that helps to kind of weave this all together in the MCU and show us, as you mentioned, like him kind of tracking the street level heroes. But like outside of that, like there's no enemy, there's no antagonist in this show, right? And I actually appreciated that, because again, it just helped drive home that character focus approach, that this is about Simon Williams, right? And
Yeah.
it really did work.
Yeah, I mean, they're even like, I love how Marvel is promoting this show is about a movie, or it's a show about making a superhero movie, and that's truly what it is. It's just the guy who's going for the role happens to have superpowers, and again, the fact that Orion Moyed's in it, at his character's back to be that through thread, it reminds you, like you said, the government still cares about these like superpowered individuals. They're still going to track them, but that isn't why we're watching this show. We're watching this show for the actor's journey, basically, and it is such a great ride. I love it.
And to your point, I think it does a good job of not necessarily painting Agent Cleary as a bad guy. He's just a guy trying to do his job. And to what you said earlier, Justin, Simon Williams is his own worst enemy, and Trevor Slattery having lived through being his own worst enemy. I do want to give a shout out to X Mayo, though, really quick. Simon's agent Janelle, just because she's so hilarious.
She has put up with him for so long.
Oh yeah,
she has put up with him so long. You can tell she's tired of Simon,
and she knows his MO,
buttons,
right? Like he knows that. Please just record the damn video and send it to me. Like I just love, like, don't overthink it. Like she just again, you get to see the people around Simon really do understand him.
Yeah.
Right. And understand what his quirks. And I like that. I like that Simon is quirky. Right. So I think it really fits.
Well, let's talk about this story without talking about the story. I mean, we are going to say fully spoiler free, but I would love to kind of get into a little bit just in terms of the structure of the story, what you thought of it overall. Again, getting to see the entire all of the episodes in one sitting, what that was like. But this story focuses on Simon Williams, who is an actor who, like we've been saying, like he wants to play himself, but he can never actually be himself, and he's, like you said, Justin, he's stuck between choosing, the thing between himself or the thing that he loves the most in the world, which is acting. Darcy, what did you think of the way that this story was done in this Marvel Spotlight series?
Again, I'm going to go back to calling out the studio, because it was reminiscent of that, where each episode kind of feels like almost a different, like a encapsulated thing, but it's part of a larger story. And just the pacing I find was really exciting. And I was trying to think of it as coming out week to week. I think it works this way that they're telling the stories, because every episode has a satisfying end and also that little tease for it to come back. But it's not your typical MCU, like, oh, this superhero is going to show up now, or this fight's going to happen next episode. It's more, this is the next step in the journey. Like we go through the audition to the casting calls and all these different processes down the line. And just, it's such a cool way of telling a story about a superhero in a superhero movie. Again, the way that it's so meta almost about it is so enjoyable and delightful. And
it's crazy. It's layers of style, right?
Oh yeah, it's just, it's so great. And I love the fact that they went that route. And again, there's an episode in the middle that it's a bottle episode that's a period piece, if you will, and it's just incredible. Like the way that this show's paced out, and then they drop this gem of TV in the middle, and then they keep going, and it just builds off that. Again, I think this show and the story is incredible and it's, again, something different. We haven't seen something like this from Marvel before, and it's so refreshing that it's working so well. I think I love it.
Yeah, I think it's. I mean, it is dropping, like you said, or like we said earlier, it is dropping in one release on the 27th. But to your point, Darcy, if you want to pace yourself, I think you're right. I think you could enjoy it week to week if you want to take your time with it. Absolutely. Yeah. I don't know if you're going to want to, but you could.
I think that's the thing. I think, without saying too much, I think there is a reason why they decided to do a 1 day drop versus going week to week, because I just think the conversation there would be interesting. It's just, will it get to a place of, will audiences feel like by the end of it that it was worth the week to week, right?
It's not a show you
Versus
can theorize about in the middle. I totally get that. Yeah.
that's what I mean, right? Like it feels like it is so self-contained. I think at the core, Wonder Man is far more interested in identity and validation than traditional superhero storytelling. I think this is a series that's about being seen and about wanting to matter and about figuring out who you are in an industry that thrives on perception and reinvention at its constant core, right?
Yeah, I just got to jump in there because the way you just described that is Wonder Man from the comics, and you're talking about again this show, which is a completely different character, but they've understood what makes him who he is so well.
100%.
Like,
yeah, and they've just
crazy
told
how
it in a different way, right?
Yeah, like you got exactly who the character is without having ever read one of the comics, and it's incredible.
It's incredible, man, because it's doing it within the scope of the Hollywood studio system. Do you know what I mean? And they're still keeping everything at there. And the pacing is exciting. There are ups and downs, but it's all deliberate. It's all deliberate. It's all purposeful. And I think in some cases it could be divisive if it was a week to week for viewers. And I think it might be different in terms of what viewers are expecting typically from the MCU. But that approach feels, again, all intentional. I think the stakes are largely more on the character and the internal struggle than anything outside, right? I think the show is comfortable with sitting with moments with Simon, with Trevor, with these characters to understand where they are rather than rushing to a big spectacular MCU moment. And even though it exists in the MCU, I think Wonder Man feels like it's operating somewhere on the edges of the MCU, like just kind of in the fray, like, and I think that's what works best for it. It just it's less about saving the world and more about just in a lot of ways surviving it, and it gives the series just a really, like you said, it gives it a distinct and unique voice that feels refreshingly different from anything else within the MCU and within Marvel Television specifically, if we're thinking about that. And yeah.
And this is the second Marvel Spotlight show, and I enjoyed most of Echo, but I think they've taken so many lessons from that series, and just in terms of how they're releasing it, and just how this does such a better job of living up to, like you're saying, staying on the outside, staying on the fray of the MCU. And I think they've found a way to achieve this story that you can enjoy and is fully justified whether you've invested a lot into the MCU or not. I think even if you've just watched Iron Man 3, that's all you would need, and that's not even entirely necessary to enjoy this show. So I think you'll get more from it if you have, but I love that, and I think that's such a smart way about going about doing these spotlights for the MCU.
Yeah, this feels closer to the way they tell stories in the comics, because there are so many authors telling so many stories with the same characters, but it's not like every story is leading into the next one, or that the tying into the other one written by another author. They're all separate stories that exist in the same world, and that's something that, again, Marvel, I think, should lean into. Tell stories, again, more ground level. Like, it's not a world-ending threat; it's just an everyday situation that you have to face, but there's superpowers involved. Like, it's comic books are so much more than about superheroes and superpowers. It's about life stories and lessons and stuff like that, with just superheroes slipped in for fun. So I think,
through
this
the
one's
lens,
a perfect example of that. Yeah,
it's through the lens of the superhero story.
Yeah, the fantastical is what makes it appealing, but it's the grounded and relatable stories that makes you keep reading.
It's all done intentionally when it's in the comics. And I think to your point, Nate, like, they've probably learned quite a bit from something like Echo, maybe even something like She-Hulk to a certain degree. Just in terms of like the strategy of releasing, what's a spotlight, what isn't, that, all of that. But I think this is probably the best realization of, what a spotlight could be based on other things that we've gotten in the MCU or in Marvel Television thus far.
And I think the pacing, you brought up the pacing earlier, Justin. I think, I'm not going to say anything from a plot standpoint, but I will just say the finale for this show. Normally with these Disney Plus shows, we get a final episode and it's a rush to the finish, and it almost feels like that's just like
Miss
right.
Marvel.
And Miss Marvel, it almost feels
She-Hulk.
like that's just like expected, like it's par for the course, and we should expect it as fans, and that's unfortunate. But I think this
You
show
keep going on, Justin.
yeah, you could. But I think the way that this show is able to do a Marvel finale, give you things that you would want from a Marvel finale in very unexpected different ways, and then still had me looking at my watch, not in a bad way, but looking at my watch and going, holy crap, we still have like a whole episode in front of everything that just happened at the beginning portion of a finale. It was so well done, and I huge kudos to the wonderful writing team behind this series, who were able to give us a worthwhile finale for this show. I was so delighted by the pacing of the series in general, and like you said, Darcy, how it is kind of a different thing each episode, one big story, and the way it wraps up is awesome. But let's get to our final thoughts and score on a scale of 1 to 5 callbacks. Darcy, I'm going to have you kick us off.
Again, I think this is one of the best Marvel shows to date. Again, the fact that it set out to do its own thing and committed to it and nailed the landing so hard, because the fact that Justin was able to describe the character like to his core beliefs and faults with Simon Williams, and it's a completely different story than the comics, means that even though it is a different story, this character is the same, and there is meaning from these stories to be told here. And it was the way they told it, the way it's shot, the pacing. Again, that middle episode, I cannot wait for it to hit the internet.
The internet
people
is gonna,
will be talking.
I can't wait.
It's going to explode. That episode alone is enough to watch this series, but everything
sure.
else around it is also just pure gold. So this one is an easy 5 out of 5 callbacks from me, because it is a must-watch Marvel, which I think has been a long time since we've had something like this.
Yeah. Shout out to episode 5 for sure. I'm excited. I'm excited for people to see that. Like I was saying before, Wonder Man feels like a confident swing in a different direction for Marvel Television. One that prioritizes character, performance, and atmosphere over the typical MCU spectacle. It's grounded in the way it looks. There's incredible performances, as we talked about, from Yahya and Sir Ben Kingsley. And it's a thoughtful approach to the idea around identity and ambition, and it has its own distinct voice. So I think the idea of as we were talking about from past series, and the all the lessons to be learned, this show embraces restraint and leaning into the realities of the world, and specifically through the lens of Hollywood, rather than sort of the fantasies.
One of the fakest places
yeah, exactly,
in the world.
That's what's really interesting,
yeah.
right? Like so I think the show just finds something genuinely human about Simon Williams, and I think it's the way it frames it in the Hollywood system really works. I don't know if this is going to be for everyone looking for like the traditional superhero style show, but for those open to something that is more personal, more character driven, Wonder Man delivers. And I'm with you, Darcy. It's a 5 out of 5 callbacks for me.
Yeah, I think, to your point and the point that we've been making, and if you've listened to this so far and you're still expecting a traditional superhero show, this is unlike anything we've gotten in the MCU before, and in pretty much every way, and that's exactly what we need right now. It feels like this is quenching a thirst that I didn't know I had, and it's so refreshing and it's so different. And I love that we're at this point, and one of the revelations you were coming up with, Darcy, of hearing how Justin was describing the character of Wonder Man, never having read a comic book. I love that we are at this point where we can come into meeting these characters that we have no clue who they are. Some of us have no clue who they are and what they're all about, and we can just come to these stories without any apprehension. I love it. I want more talking trees. I want more Wonder Man characters who I've never heard of before, right? I want more of these strange characters that Marvel, and specifically Marvel Studios and Marvel Television, are able to take and make it their own. Darcy, you always talk about how you're such a fan of the comics, but you love how Marvel Studios takes those creative liberties, gives them new energy, gives them new messages, while still staying core to the competencies of the characters that they are basing these stories around. And so, yeah, absolutely the same can be said about Wonder Man. I had a really, really, really great time with it. I can't wait. I really hope we see Simon Williams and Trevor Slattery again in the MCU, wherever that may be. I hope we do. I would love to. I'm also going to give Wonder Man the strongest 5 out of 5 callbacks. I'm happy that this is the way that we're kicking off our MCU in 2026. Like, thank goodness, because we did have our episode where we talked about, the way we kicked off our MCU in the film side of things in 2025, and that did not it wasn't as high a praise for Captain America.
No. I am surprised though they waited so long to release this though, because this has been like done and wrapped for a while apparently. Yeah. I don't know exactly how long, but
do you think there's more than do you think there's creative reasons as to why it might be being released now versus earlier?
Know.
You know what I mean?
I don't know. It's for as solid as it is. I just wonder what the holdup was. You know what I mean? Because I thought
maybe they just wanted to stand on its own. Because
I do think that has a lot to do. That just push it right out and just get it away from everything. Because I think the last thing we had before this on a television side was Marvel Zombies, but then from I guess a big MCU thing, it would be Fantastic Four was the last film that came out for them. So I don't know, they're clearly putting a little bit more distance between certain things. This to I don't know what else we're going to be getting from the TV side. Vision Quest is apparently coming out later this year. Will that come out in the back half of 2026?
Will it all be dropped as one?
Will it? I think that's a show that's going to definitely lean on the WandaVision, Agatha all along, theorizing week to week. But I'm happy that this show is finally out and it's as good as as we've all just said it is based on the 5 out of 5s.
Yeah, please watch this show. Yeah. Tell Marvel to make more things like this. Tell Marvel Studios, Marvel Television. That is it for our spoiler-free review for Wonder Man. We hope you enjoyed it. And if you want to share your thoughts on this series or any of the movies or series we cover, let me just have Justin send in his audition tape where he plays a character who's letting you know how you can reach us.
Justin Lawrence.
Action.
Justin Lawrence reading for Guy who spills out all the plugs. Well, they can reach us at wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. That's wearegeekcentric@gmail.com. They can also hit us up on Twitter at geekcentricyt and on Instagram and TikTok at wearegeekcentric.
It was good. I thought there was an there. Did you want to retake that or do you want to just send that in?
No, it's got to be natural.
It's got to be natural. The character's natural. You're right. Okay.
Yeah. Don't be a diva.
Now I'm the diva. Keep in mind, we have a ton of other great episodes covering the latest in movies and TV shows, including our recent spoiler-filled discussion for the end of Stranger Things, as well as a bunch of spoiler-free reviews from last year for movies and series like Avatar, Fire and Ash, Percy Jackson and the Olympian Season 2, Zootopia 2, and a ton of our TIFF reviews as well. Plus, I mentioned it earlier, but we've got our annual Geek Back episode out now where we take a look back at our favorite movies, series, video games, and collectibles of 2025. We also shout out our biggest disappointments of the year, as well as what we're most looking forward to in 2026. We've also got some great interviews to check out, like our most recent interviews with 2 of the cast members from Percy Jackson and the Olympians. We had the opportunity to sit down with Dior Goodjohn and Daniel Diemer, who play Clarice and Tyson in the series, and discuss their characters in season 2 and how they connected with them. Plus, we have some of our biggest interviews to check out from last year. You can go back and check out our interviews with folks like James Cameron and Stephen Lang from Avatar, Fire and Ash, the Duffer Brothers, Sadie Sink and Jamie Campbell Bower from Stranger Things, and our interviews with Aaron Moten, Todd Howard, and Jonathan Nolan from Fallout. Be sure to check out all of our interviews either here on your podcast service of choice or over on YouTube at youtube.com/geekcentric. And lastly, we've got some really exciting stuff, and dare I say, magical stuff going on right now on our other channel, Eatcentric, where we are currently at the most magical place on Earth. We're at Disney World, and we're showcasing the latest culinary delights from all 4 parks, and especially from Epcot's Festival of the Arts. It's also delicious, and we're having a fantastic time. We'd love for you to join us so you can catch all that tasty goodness over on Instagram and TikTok at We Are Eatcentric. But that's it for now, friends. We're stoked for what's to come in 2026. It's going to be a massive year for geeks. There's some really great stuff happening this year that, again, you can hear what we're so excited about in our Geek Back episode. But Darcy, Justin, thank you so much for joining me for this wonder of a spoiler-free review. And as we say, love ya.
Laters.
Peace.